Welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be talking about fractions, decimals, and percents and how you convert between each one. Okay, so first of all, we just want to start off with just the basic fraction. What is a fraction? So we typically hate fractions. Most people that I know hate fractions. I like to say fractions are like those family members that we love dearly. We just can't stand to be around them because we need them, right? We need them, we love them, but when we see them, we just want to get rid of them as quick as we can. All right, that's an analogy for another day, but fractions most people get scared of, and they're nothing to be afraid of. All right, we just got to learn how to deal with them and handle them accordingly. So a fraction is really just division. So when I see A over B, that just means A divided by B with A on the inside. If you learned the old school method of division, I know now they teach a whole bunch of other different ways to divide, but if you learned the old school method, the standard algorithm for division, A goes on the inside of that division and B is on the outside. B is what we call the divisor. Now, typically a fraction is small. In that case, that means the B won't be able to go into A. So when you actually divide it, you'll add a decimal and a zero. And so when you add that zero, that decimal allows you to add that zero. When you add that zero, you divide B into A, zero, whatever that is. And B and A are just representing numbers, okay? So this is just in general. A fraction is division. So in order to convert from a fraction to a decimal, you have to actually divide that fraction out. So let's look at an example. So for this first example, we actually want to convert this fraction to a decimal, and it is 3 divided by 4. So to convert 3/4 into a decimal, which you may already know what that is, but just so you know what's going on mathematically, that is the same as 3 divided by 4. 4 doesn't go into 3, so that's where I add the decimal and the 0, and then I see how many times does 4 go into 30. 4 goes into 30 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. I subtract, drop down that 2, I add another 0, and I say 4 goes into 20. How many times? 4 goes into 25 times. 4 times 5 is 20. And then you would subtract and 0, and that lets me know that I am finished. And so we know now that 3/4 is equal to, and you could put a 0 in front of that, but that's 0.75, or you can say 0.75. So that is what 3/4 would be equal to as a decimal, and that's how I would convert it. I would just divide it out, and you just keep adding zeros until you eventually get a remainder of 0. Unless it ends up being a decimal that repeats. So if you start getting the same number over and over and over, that means you have a repeating decimal, which you can stop at any point. But that's how you convert from fractions to decimal. You actually divide it out. So now let's talk about converting from decimal to percent. Now, to convert from a decimal to a percent, you actually want to multiply the decimal by 100, okay? So to convert from a decimal to percent, you multiply the decimal by 100. And when you multiply by 100, that's the same as saying move the decimal to the right 2 times. All right, so you can multiply by 100, or you could just move that decimal to the right 2 places. Either one. You don't have to do both, okay? So let's look at an example. So for example 2, I want to convert 0.37, which is the decimal, to a percent. So I can actually take that and multiply it by 100, but multiplying by 100 is the same as saying move that decimal to the right 2 times. So if I take this decimal and I move it to the right 2 times, that's 1, that's 2, then the decimal now goes behind the 7. And so that actually converts to 37%. So to convert from a decimal to a percent, you move the decimal to the right 2 times. All right, pretty simple, right? So we went from a fraction to a decimal and a decimal to a percent. And so now if you want to convert from a fraction to a percent, as in this example 3, we want to convert 5/8 to a percent. If you want to go from a fraction to a percent, then you have to convert that fraction to a decimal, then that decimal to a percent. Okay, so you have to go that way. And so first we need to convert 5/8 to a decimal. So we're going to divide 5 divided by 8. 8 does not go into 5, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. And 8 goes into 56 times because 8 times 6 is 48. If we subtract, we get a 2. We add a 0 and drop it down. 8 goes into 22 times because 8 times 2 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. add a 0, drop it down, and 40. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract those, and that's 0. So hopefully you can remember how to divide, or you can just plug it into your calculator and get the answer. Now I know you can't see my remainder here, but basically I just have a 0. There's a 0 underneath there that lets me know that I don't have a remainder. And so 5 over 8 is equal to 0.625. So that's how we convert from the fraction to the decimal. Now we want to convert from the decimal to the percent. The way we would do that is we would take this decimal and move it 2 times to the right, and so the decimal would now be after the 2, and so this will be equal to 62.5%. Okay, so that's how we would take a fraction and convert it to a percent. We will first convert it to a decimal, then convert the decimal to a percent. Now if I want to convert a percent to a decimal, then I have to go the opposite or to the right. I have to do like Beyonce said, to the left, to the left. Everything you own in the box to the left. So I have to go to the left 2 times. So to convert from percent to decimal, you move the decimal place to the left 2 times. So in this next example, example 4, I want to convert 19% to a decimal. So 19%, the decimal is here, but if I move it to the left 2 times, to the left, to the left, the decimal is now in front of the 1, and so that becomes 0.19. All right, so that's how you would convert from a percent to a decimal. And for the last conversion, we're going to convert from a decimal back to a fraction. Okay, and so we've been full circle once we can do this. We went from fraction to decimal to percent. We just went from percent to decimal. Now we're going to go back to fraction, decimal to fraction. Okay, so if I want to convert a decimal to a fraction, so I want to convert 0.5 to a fraction, then what I want to do is take the number that's formed without the decimal. So the number that's here is 5. I want to take that number that's formed and I want to divide it by whatever place value that it's in. So this is in the tenths place value. So that means I will write 5 over 10. And 5 over 10 can be reduced. You can divide the top and bottom by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. And so 0.5 becomes 1 over 2 as a fraction, okay? So you're basically rewriting whatever that number is over the place value. So just another really quick example I'll throw in here. Example 6. If I wanted to convert 0.27 to a fraction, then the number that I see here is 27. The 7 stops in the hundredths place, so I will write that over 100, and then I will simplify it if I could, but in this case there's no number that go into both 27 and 100, so I would actually stop there. Okay, and so this is how you convert from fractions to decimals to percents back to from percents to decimals to fractions. Okay, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to put them in the comments below, or you can send me a personal message. Thanks for tuning in, and if this video helped you in any kind of way, please hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.